Welcome to Two Seconds. This is Michael Edley, evidential medium and mystic, discussing all things spiritual.
Hello, I'm Mary Amy of 2 Seconds, an intuitive wisdom coach, tapping into your mystical life and sharing messages I receive about you.
Ooh, nice fancy little intro there. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Two Psychics Podcast. This is Michael Edley, psychic medium, and I am here with my fabulous co-host, Mary Amy. What is going on, Mary Amy? How are you?
I'm great. How are you? Coming live from New York, and here we are. Today is September 4th, and it's episode 65. Congratulations to us, and it's all about starseeds. And we have a lovely guest, Ellie Cowan Bovitz, and she is a multidimensional channel, highly spiritual being, and many, many facets to her. So how's everything going on the Jersey Shore? What is new?
Good. I was doing a little gardening today. I was watering my flowers. We haven't had a lot of rain, and I think we might get a little rain tonight, but the mosquitoes, even though we're going in, it's September now, I've been waiting for September. I love this month. I love when we go into the fall energy. I think it's really, really cool. And the changing of the leaves, all that good stuff. But the mosquitoes here, they're still like the size of birds. They're like the size of small birds. And I feel like I was bit up by mosquitoes today, but I'm enjoying. See, the funny thing is the last several months at the Jersey Shore, it's been hectic, hustle and bustle, crowds everywhere. The energy can be very chaotic, at the Jersey Shore with all the tourists, and all that energy. So for me, the last several months was working on grounding my energy, staying balanced, working on my chakra system, getting back to my meditation practice and doing that, if not daily, doing it quite a bit throughout the week. And the shift has happened, and the crowds are slowly dwindling. Maybe on the weekends we'll have the crowds, but it's such a major energy shift going into this season, and especially here at the Jersey Shore. I don't know, you're also on the East Coast, but you're not in a tourist town, I don't believe, right? Your area isn't touristy, or it is? And
no,
yeah.
No, it's not.
So here, it's been significantly different energy, just having the release of all the people and crowds that are no longer here. and it's good. We go into what we call the local summer, so you still get the taste of the nice, 80-degree weather and the nice upper 70s, but we can enjoy everything without the hectic crowds, and granted, look at the crowds bring a lot of income and a lot of resources into the area. A lot of local businesses rely on that. So it's a great thing that we can have that in this area. But for me, for someone who's very tuned in, very intuitive, very empathic, I like the release of all the chaotic energy that subsides in September.
I love September because it brings change, and everyone's coming back to a new beginning. And for us here, I live in suburbia. I live right on Long Island Sound. So there's all kinds of clubs and beaches around here, not far from Greenwich. And for us, basically, the August, no one's around. So everyone comes back in August, and all of a sudden there's more people. For me, I've been really rekindling a lot of my old spirit work that I used to do, really spending so much time just shutting everything down, because I had that broken phone for 5 days, or maybe it was a week. And I realized I kind of liked it. I didn't like that, everyone's always reaching out to me, because I know this sounds really stupid, but because then I feel like I lose my train of thought. I didn't realize how much I disconnect from what I'm doing every time there's something on the phone. So it was really, really nice for that. So I think I found myself again, and it helped me flourish and be more, I guess, joining with all the different parts of me, which I'm finding in my book. That's what it's doing. So I'm having these really cool dreams we were talking about earlier before we came on. My eye also, I can't be on the computer for too long or my eye turns red. So that, but on a whole, I love this time of year. I'm glad we're doing this together. You're embarking on a lot of new different endeavors and opportunities with your mediumship. And I'm focusing on some of the same and some new events that we're going to be doing together. We have this event coming up, and it's going to be a test run. And if it goes well, I'm going to book 4 or 5 events after that. So just prepare yourself, Michael Edley, because
it's going to go. We're going to manifest a fantastic event. It is going to go extremely well, and I think that'll open the door for other events. But the funny thing that resonates with me is when you talk about kind of being off the matrix. Your phone was broke and you were disconnected from what so many people are just locked onto. You know, the most interesting thing that I see, just being out doing events, even being at a concert, you know, there was a day and time that you and I have experienced that the kids of today, the youth of today, and even younger adolescents, you know, and even, you know, young adults haven't experienced, is we were born in a time where there was no cell phones. There was, you know, you had a phone. At least for me early on, you know, it was a very big thing to get my own phone in my room. There would be a point in the kitchen, you know, there was this thing, anyone listening that's very young that hadn't experienced this, there was actually this unit called a phone mounted on the wall with a long cord, and you would try to get, you know, maybe buy the extra 10 or 20 foot cord so you could sneak out of the kitchen or the living room and go into another area where the rest of your family couldn't hear, you know. And I remember getting my own phone in my room so I could have private conversations, and I had an answering machine, but I, you know, and I could call up from a pay phone, you know, you have to put the quarter in and dial up. And, you know, it was just a whole different day and age where people today are just so connected. They're always on. And as good as it is that it's made the world smaller and it's given a lot of opportunities for people to connect, because there definitely would have been times in my younger days where it would have been great where I met someone and I could have communicated to them through emails, or it would have been easier to have unlimited minutes and talk. You know, this is you know, we grew up where you were paying for long distance, or if you met someone that was a stayed out, or you had family or friends, it would cost you a lot of money. You know, you had to keep an eye on the clock to go, oh, wait, okay, this is like a $10 phone call right now. We got to go. Sorry. And it was just a different day and age. I appreciate what we had back then, because I think it allowed us to just find ourselves, you know, where everything today is just exposed and you're out in the open. And, you know, for kids today, it's a very interesting dynamic. And I think that's one of the reasons why we see so many mental health issues now, and so many issues where people are dealing with debilitating anxiety and depression and all these things, is because, you know, well, one of the reasons I see is because they don't unplug. They're always on, you know, the phone is always next to them. They're always scrolling the news feeds. And that's the one thing people need to understand. The news is going to sensationalize all the negativity. That's what captures us. That's what pulls us into the headlines. You know, we were very fortunate to be raised in a day and an age where we could be very disconnected. You know, I'd have to listen I remember as a child having to listen in the background for my mother, like screaming, you know, hey, dinner's ready, or, you know, something crazy like that, and go and gathering my bike going, or, you know, trekking through the woods and the trails. You know, I grew up in the Pine Barrens, so we had a lot of woods and trails, and we had, you know, these natural, there were these areas that had natural springs and man-made springs. So we would go exploring these sand dunes, and it was just a different day and age. And it's funny, when I saw your post that you were disconnected from your phone and you felt so relieved, and the response, and you had so many people going, I know that feeling, and I wish I could get to that. I wish I could disconnect from my phone. It really brought me back to days of past when we were disconnected, and we could, you know, we could explore, and we could find ourselves, and we could go on this inward journey that's so difficult now in this day and age for kids and young adults to do, because we're connected 24/7.
Yeah, honestly, it's almost like after I got my phone back, I realized how much of the activity that goes on the phone grates me. The videos, I don't know what kind of sound, like what sound is that's coming through. I feel like it's not necessary. And when I would go out and I didn't have my phone, first of all, I would just figure out what time to be somewhere. I didn't need my phone to look at. I just realized everyone's looking at their phone, and how much time are you wasting being on your phone? Because you're not really doing anything productive. And you waste a lot of time. I mean, look, there's things that I need to look at, but at the same time, we could be doing creative things. We could be painting a picture, molding something out of clay, or I don't know, spend time just talking to a friend in person. It brought me back more to all of the work that I've done in the past, which I used to just paint walls of murals, and I would just sit and read and write, and I would just spend time in nature. So I would just, like, the last couple of days, now two or three times a day, I go spend time by the water. And I'm going to continue to do that even when we have colder weather, because otherwise I get lost and everything just feels like a rush and I don't feel grounded. So I know I'm kind of complaining right now. I want to get onto, we have to talk about starseeds before we bring Ellie out, because she's going to be on in a few minutes. Okay. Does that feel
good? Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Let's jump into it.
Because look, I have banners now, topics, guests, psychic readings. I don't know if you can see that, because that's what we're all about, everyone. So every week we have a topic. Sometimes we're going to have guests, sometimes we're not. Next week, we're going to have a meditation visualization episode next Thursday. And then the following week, we'll probably have a guest. So anyone out there who wants a psychic reading, please write in the comments and we can give you readings, or we can bring you on. Okay.
Well, and that's the great thing about next week, not to cut you off, but next week, if anyone out there that maybe can't get through tonight, or you're listening to this after we've gone live, you're listening to this maybe tomorrow, next Thursday, 7:30 p.m., we will be here and we will have a lot of time to either answer your questions, get into some type of psychic energy to a question you may have, or even get into, like myself, get into some mediumship reading. So we would love to do that. So if you are listening to us tonight, definitely put your question in the chat. If not, and you're hearing this after it's recorded, tune in next week and we will absolutely love to answer your question, and you may get a reading from us.
Yes. So last week we did a live, and I just want to let everyone know I didn't check recent in the last few days, but we were up over 500 views on it. So we are getting views. So everyone out there, maybe you can join us live and not watch it, after we're on. Okay, let's talk about starseeds, because the reason that I'm bringing up starseeds is because our guest, I believe she might be a starseed. Are you from another star? Okay, what are starseeds? Now, this is just my interpretation, okay? And you tell me what you think, everyone out there. We love input. Okay, so starseeds are known to be incarnated advanced souls from another planet, galaxy, that are living on Earth. Maybe you're a starseed and your mission is to help awaken humanity, and you are highly sensitive. So here's some traits that maybe apply to you. Okay, are you intuitive? Have you tuned into your sixth sense, like Michael and I, your ESP, one of your clairsenses? Are you claircognizant? Clairvoyant? Are you a medium? Are you a channel? Clairaudience? Clairempathic? Are you very empathic person and compassionate? Do you have a wise soul? And are you deeply connected to the cosmos and highly sensitive? Maybe astrology is your thing, and you're very interested in space and other planets. And these individuals who are starseeds are attracted to each other. So it's like when you meet someone, you're like, oh my gosh, I have kinship with this person. I feel like I've known them forever. So maybe they are like being as you, okay? And you also might feel as though you miss home, like, I don't really belong. I've never felt like I belong. Okay, so you might be someone who is into spreading love and light, like I am. You're ascending to a higher consciousness through dark night of the soul. We've spoken about that. Maybe Michael can explain that. And had a spiritual awakening. Okay, how do you become a starseed? Well, maybe you're remembering something from the past. It might come through in lucid dreams. You might have dreams with extraterrestrials. You might activate your DNA. What are some types of starseeds? And then I'm going to let Michael share what his belief system is. Are you from Pleiades, which is a star cluster, and you are benevolent and intuitive and a healer? Are you from Sirius, the dog star? You're full of knowledge and you're a born leader. Are you from the Andromeda galaxy and you're an innovator? Or maybe you're from Arcturus, which I believe I am. You're a protector, a transformer, and you focus on harmony and change. All right. What's your take on this, Michael?
The one thing I think we have to look at is we're all connected, regardless of what star system, what period of time we've come from, whether we're reincarnated into this world, whether we're born into this world from another system, is we're all divinely connected to source. So whether you're a starseed or you're reincarnated from a past life into this realm, the one thing I absolutely can say is we're all divinely connected. And through that connection and through that channel, I think in this sense, it's just this new segment of humanity, this awakened segment of humanity that many people in the past have talked about. You know, we've had Edgar Cayce speak about an awakening in humanity that we're seeing now. We've had a lot of channelers. Whether this is from channeling, mystical channelers that have channeled ascended masters, that channel, some type of alien intelligence, or just channeling directly through source. We're all divinely connected. And whether someone's a starseed that's among us, or they're being reincarnated, we have to go on this inward journey, and we have to kind of go through this period of self-discovery. Now, you had mentioned Dark Night of the Soul. I could tell you, any starseed, any reincarnated soul, or any even new soul that is opening to their divine gifts has to go through this period of self-reflection, and it's an inward journey to kind of discover that. And what we need to realize is when we incarnate into this physical reality here on Earth, we forget a lot, a lot from our past, whether that's past lives, whether that's the realm we came from, even our divine connection to source and everything that is connected to that. We have to relearn that. We have to go through a period of self-discovery that reawakens us. And I think that's why now we're seeing so many younger kids that are talking about things we hadn't heard in the past. And I think it's becoming more acceptable in modern day society. Where traditional religion, where, you and I were both, very, very, I would say, guided through the traditional religious systems. And it was almost like you needed an intercessor, that divine connection, you have to watch out for that. And it kind of pulled us out of that connection to source. And I think what we're seeing now, it's okay to talk about spirituality and religion, how they interconnect, the differences between them. But I think the reality that we are all divinely connected and we all come from divine source is kind of a knowing now. I don't think there's many people out there. I mean, maybe you have a few atheists and a few people that have, kind of dug in their heels because of grief or trauma or their own personal experience. But other than that, I think most people are open and tuned into, we are so much more than this physical body. And regardless of where you come from, what you come from, we're all divinely connected. And I think the more we speak about this, the more we bring light to this, and the more we can bring guests on and we can kind of show people what we've gone through and we've experienced, it'll make people more comfortable and more accepting to speak about their own story. And I think that's what this is about. So whether you're a starseed, whether you're an old soul that's reincarnated, whether you're just a divine soul that's here for the first time, we're all connected and everything. So whether you're a human being, whether we were, whether we're an alien hybrid, whether we're here from another star system and we're a complete alien among us, we all come from source. We are all connected to source. And that's the one thing that everyone needs to understand, and they need to go on their own journey to find their connection.
Yeah, I totally agree. In fact, I also came to the realization, and you know, I'm not a perfect person. I've had some people out in the physical reality that either they graded on me or something, and then in the last 2 days, I think because I returned to myself more and got away from technology, I was like, who cares? Just like come from love, come from love. And you know, sometimes it's harder to do that when you're going through something, because you're just trying to heal and you're trying to surrender to it and get in your heart space. But now I'm on the other side of it, and I'm like, let's just have fun and be happy and join with each other, because we are all connected. Exactly what you just said. I appreciate you saying that and reminding all of us that we are. And I think what I'm trying to say by explaining what a star seed is more like connecting to your intuition, becoming more sensitive, stepping away from the physical reality and the matrix and tuning inward. And that being said, because we have Ellie in the waiting room, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to introduce her. I'm going to tell everyone who she is. And I'm excited. I've never met her. She was introduced to us by Dana Louise, another guest who was an ET experiencer, and she wrote a book. I'm trying to remember the name of it. You can find her on Facebook, and she's a wonderful human being. So here is Ellie Cowan Bovitz. I hope I'm saying her name right. So who is she? I see that she's in the waiting room, but device is not connected. So please connect them, Ellie. Multidimensional channel, medium, animal, and nature communicator. I don't know which area she wants to talk about tonight. She's had experiences with Starseeds ET Pheneomenon. She studied at the Waldorf Education Early Childhood in Fair Oaks, California from 1994 to 1996, and then completed a 4-year training in Eurythmy in Mount Shasta, California from 1997 to 2001. Very interesting. There she is. I can see her. Waldorf Education Foundation is based on the understanding that a child is reincarnated spiritual being bringing greater gifts from the spiritual worlds. So Eurythmy is a movie.
You're Eurythmy, and it's interesting. I'm gonna intercede a little bit. What's funny is, as I was reading her bio, I saw a lot of move. It's like a spiritual movement. You'll find that in a lot of the martial arts. And just a little tidbit is, it's something I experienced early on as a child, because for a long period of my life, I was involved in martial arts. I'd studied Taekwondo and Kempo. And you would get into this spiritual zone in the movements of the martial arts. And I'd be very curious to talk to her a little bit about that, and what connection she sees between being a starseed, tuning into our intuitive body, the energetic body and frequencies that are around us, and how it all correlates. So that's definitely something I want to talk about.
So do I. And you know what? I feel like we're going deeper, and we're meeting more of these individuals who this is all waking me up to this. I'm so excited. So it in itself a pathway to awaken our spiritual facilities. And she says she was one of those highly energetic, sensitive children and retained memory of life before birth and had regular contact. Okay, I don't know what happened there. Okay, she saw departed loved ones, and this was 100% normal for her. She soon found out that it was not the norm for others. Her website is you can look it up right now if you choose, loveyourpath.net. And let's bring her out. And here she is. Hi, welcome.
Hello, Ellie. Welcome to Two Psychics Podcast. We really appreciate you being here with us tonight.
Yeah, nice to meet you guys. It's kind of a thrill to have not met before and just do this. Okay, so Eurythmy is what it's called.
Yes.
Michael, let's talk energy. There's so much to say, but I'm really glad to be here. Thank you for having me.
So yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure having you here with us. Can you share with our viewers, where are you calling in from?
Yeah, so I'm in Mounds View, Minnesota, which is just a bit north of the Twin Cities.
Oh, nice. Okay. So we're all kind of on the eastern side of the country, which is good. we're kind of connected. So are you experiencing what's the weather out there right now? Are you experiencing change of seasons? Are you feeling that September shift?
Yeah, yeah, it's shifting, and that's exactly it. We've had a lot of warm days for us, and I don't know what it is with the sun, but when I was 74 and I was a kid, it was kind of cool. When it's 74 now, it's hot, you know.
Yeah.
So we're having days like that. We're having rain. We're having a bit of everything. But I definitely am getting very eager to get my wool sweaters out, and you know, all of that. It's getting crisp, and I love the light in autumn. You know, I can definitely feel that transition time.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, here, you know, all the leaves will be changing soon. You get all of that beautiful, that beautiful mixture of all the different colors and all that blend and the sunlight breaking through those leaves. It's a beautiful thing. So one of the topics of our show tonight, we're talking about star seeds, and we know that's a specialty of yours. We know that's something you're now it's not a specialty, or it is.
Well, it's interesting. I'll let you know what I know and how I came about it, because it's a conversation in this world, you know. I don't feel to be an expert, but go on, Michael, finish your thought, and I'll go into sort of how I came upon the starseed stuff.
Yeah. So obviously it's an interesting topic of conversation these days. And what I find is a lot of the younger generations, you know, they're identifying with that term, where, you know, in my youth, that wasn't even a term yet. You know, it was hard to even talk about, you know, me as a child being a medium or being a psychic. But it's interesting. I feel as if in today's day and age, what Mary and I were speaking about on our intro there, I think it's a little more accepted, and it's a little more open to conversation, and we're absolutely seeing an awakening within our society and within the world today. But how would you describe a star seed and that path of kind of tuning into what you feel you're being called to, if you feel you are a star seed?
Yeah, good question. So first of all, the best that I can assess is that the reason that it's kind of coming on board in this time is that it's relevant for us at this time. You know, it's sort of reawakening in the consciousness as part of our evolution, as the evolutionary things are quickening. The ways that I was aware of younger people talking about being star seeds, but I was never really tuned or drawn into it necessarily.
Yeah.
But through my readings, giving readings to people, it started to come into the readings. And at first it kind of freaked me out a little bit. I was a little bit like, wait a minute, what actually is this? Because for one thing, there's always going to be part of me that's skeptical, because, you know, when you're giving a reading, mediumship reading, psychic readings, it's a big responsibility, you know, and there's ethics involved. And I would get the feeling at first, like, I don't want to lead anyone astray. And why am I getting these messages? I sort of wanted to vet the knowledge before I felt comfortable really passing it on, you know, to other people. But that's how it really came to me, is that it started to enter into the conversations that I would have with people during readings. And then as I was really exploring that and taking that into my meditation, some things in my family background, things started to click. And there is a constellation, the Lyran constellation, and they're like the lion and cat people, and there's also bird people in there. They're blue skin, the avians. So there's like avian star seeds, there's the Lyran star seeds. And when I started working publicly, I've always been spiritual, and I've always done really deep spiritual practices, but I never ever in my life intended to do this publicly. It was just always something private, and it was always something that I really wasn't around sort of like-minded company. So it was something that was very just within me. But I needed a name for my company when I started going to holistic fairs and giving readings. I just needed a name and, you know, having a booth. And so the name is Love Your Path, and I also got a photograph, or hold on, I'm gonna grab it. It's wrapped up and ready to go. I just picked up this image, at a shop to have on my table, and then I had my little sign saying Love Your Path, very simple, have people come and give readings. Well, this jewel comes from my grandmother, and that's who I really believe that I get my gifts from. My grandmother and my mother were, it's going to tie together. My grandmother and my mother were in hiding during the Holocaust. So my mother was a very little child, and my grandmother got her. They escaped, and they were in hiding for about 5 years. When I was very young, I used to always call my grandmother Lion Face. I couldn't even say my L's properly. And I haven't had like a fascination with lions per se, but I used to call her Lion Face. And part of so as this started to happen, that these star seed images, different constellations, and I would hear names like Andromeda, and then I would look it up and I would try to do my research, and just tell people, please take it as a mythology, and you can feel what rings true for yourself, but I'm saying these are the images I'm giving. One day I was at a fair, and I was speaking to another person there, and it just must have been my wake up moment. But I said, I realized, okay, oh my goodness, I'm going to have the timeline all mixed up, but the woman's name is Meg Bartlett, and she's a lovely young lady, and she told me to listen to a podcast of hers about starseeds that evening. But what she talked about is the wars that went on, supposedly, with the Lyrans, where they had their planet. They were a very benevolent and advanced race of beings, and they were part of the seeders of the human beings, supposedly. And there were wars then with the draconian, like the lizard people, the not so nice energies. And there were a couple different sides to this, where the draconian race had apparently lost their home, lost their planet, and they went then to Lyra, to this community, this star system, and wanted to be sheltered there. And they were turned away. This is what Meg Bartlett channeled, that they were turned away from the Lyrans. The Lyrans didn't want to let them in because the energy was very contradictory, and they didn't trust them, but they were also very trusting. And in short order, what happened is the Draconians supposedly kind of went behind their back, and they wound up losing their planet and it being blown up, the Lyrans. So now the Lyrans are wandering around without a planet, needing places to go. Very advanced, very peaceful race, and they somehow came to Earth and were part of the seeding foundation star races. So the story goes. But what was so interesting to me about my whole family of origin story is this whole piece then, like with the wandering Jews, right? Like my parents, my grandparents, they lost their homeland. My grandfather had been an accountant. And then as the Nazis were coming in and whatnot, by the end, he was delivering coal on a buggy to people's homes. And my grandmother would go out to the neighboring fields and forage vegetables to give them something to eat. And she took my mother with her. And then one day they came and a neighbor was there and said that Carl, my grandfather, was taken away. Had my mother been there, they would have hung her right away. So they somehow escaped and they were in hiding. And that's the story. But what goes often together that I've only learned in the last years is this whole thing of you don't talk. You come to a new country, you integrate, especially coming from Germany then in the 50s. And, they were very poor when they came. My grandfather got a job in Duluth, Minnesota, which is where I'm from, on Lake Superior. Absolutely amazing place. He was a janitor at the temple. And so I grew up being so empathic, but in the soul sphere of my parents, of course. And for my mom, I remember her looking out the window all the time in our kitchen and thinking, even as a young child, oh, she just wishes she was a bird and that she could fly away. She had a lot of depression and a lot of things that came from that background as well. And for me, getting my voice out has been one of the hardest things for me. But then when all of this clicked together, and then I also heard on a YouTube video of a young Japanese man who I think makes really beautiful starseed content about the Lyran planet. He said, one of the things he said is that one of the ways that they talk to each other, they call each other Wyatt Lion Face. That's one of the ways that they would speak to each other. So for me, this very unconscious, I just needed something, to set on the table, had a very deep meaning, and it started to make a bridge for me of something to trust, even as an analogy of that sort of being wandering and not having a home and having to open up to so much newness, right? So as I started to get more comfortable giving readings, I've really, like I said, the main emphasis for me is that people feel the ring of truth in their own heart, because I don't want to feed someone something that isn't true, but that they can, like I said, take something even as a mythology, a grand creation story, and see what rings true, because there's always going to be archetypes. So at the very least, the things with the star seeds present very fundamental human and soul spiritual archetypes. But it's also, I know now, doing a lot of work with animals as well, there's a lot of animals that are, you could say, star seeds. And for me, the best I can assess is that we are stardust, as Joni Mitchell so beautifully sings or says in Woodstock, that song. But that we come from such a plethora of different systems, and that we probably belong to very many systems. And when one person particularly relates to a certain planet, let's say the Lyran star, they may be from many different, or have many different soul aspects, so to say, from many different constellations. But it feels to me energetically almost like astrology, in a sense, like the moment that you're born, the stars in the heavens, they're in a fixed moment and they're shining into your life. And so they pose certain archetypes. And in that sense, the things that people might be drawn to, the qualities of like being a fighter, or I forgot how you put it, Mary Amy, but
you mean a protector or warrior?
Yeah, like that. When they carry certain sort of threads of courage and of ambition and ways that they're directed, I would put it, to me, it feels like, I guess I'm on the conservative side, that the constellations and the intelligences, because there's no way that we're the only intelligence in the universe, and we're hardly that at our best anyway, right? But that there's a shining in of energetic aspects that are very helpful for that particular person in their incarnation in this time. And perhaps that we're waking up to those terms and to a sense and a longing for to go back, or a recognition, is because it's helping us evolve out of the density of this 3D world, that we can start to remember, not only remember, but taking the word to remember ourselves, so that we get a fuller understanding of who we are as beings. And that's what I see multidimensionality as well, is that we're able to stand in a much fuller assemblage of who we are and where we come from, and all of the unseen realms that filter in through us.
Yeah, absolutely. So the star seeds can absolutely hold some aspect and characteristics of their past, and there's a reason why they're bringing that to fruition into this physical reality here on Earth. You know, I love that, and I love you touching base on the aspect that we are all stardust, and we all come from stardust. You know, and we'll all go back to stardust. That's a great reminder. I know I love that, and I love the way you've kind of brought everything together and kind of tied all the starseed stuff together for us. Now, another thing, being a medium, I'm always curious when I speak to other mediums is, how did that start unfolding in your life? Is that something you experienced early on, or was there something that tuned you in later in life, or what was that path like for you?
It was, and it took me a long time to realize that the whole way that I work, whether I'm working psychically or mediumistically, because I really feel things, and I don't know how you are, because I can read people's energy, I can look at them, I can see colors, all of that, but really what I do is channel. And so for me, my mediumship comes from behind and flows this way. And it's taken a lot of training, but I'm using visuals today. This picture, I don't know if you can see it very well because of, I'm going to turn off this little weird thing right there. Can you guys see that picture, that there's all these eyes around there?
I can see it, but not great, because I'm videoing on my phone right now, so the screen is really small, but I can kind of get a gist of it.
Yeah, what you would see if I could do it properly is there's a million eyes around this personage, and it's actually a picture about going back into the spiritual world at the point of death. But there's all these eyes, almost like you would see a peacock's feather, how it's got that sort of eye in the center of the feather. That is the best way that I can describe how my mediumship manifested as a very young person, and it sucked. It was frightening. So I'm sorry, I hope I can say that. I have sometimes a bit of a potty mouth, so I will try to contain that. But I'm very, very deeply empathic, and so I had a lot of sleep paralysis, and once in a while I had visions, but it was more that I could feel it. So it was really like I felt the presence of a million eyes around me, and I didn't know what to do with it. When what I wrote in my biography, I may have to change it, when I said that I had conscious memories that I had from being even in the womb, that came through regressive hypnosis, actually. So I didn't retain that, but I have memories from, I know that I was younger than 4. I think I was more like 2, where memories with spiritual beings that I always felt safe. I never ever talked about them. It was just my own private world. But I had also my mediumship. So I was born in 1968. I was very, very aware of Vietnam, which isn't normal because I think it ended sort of in 1974. I was still very young, but when I look back, some of the things that I would experience and not really understand, I had stomach aches all the time because I literally couldn't digest what I was feeling and experiencing. But it would be like thrones and lines of people going into the spiritual world, like going this way, and then lines and lines of people coming out from the spiritual world to incarnate. And from a very young age, I think that I could really feel the pain and the injustice and just some of the intensity of the war and the unfairness to the souls on both sides, on every side of it. But when I was very young, I used to walk up to anyone that was a man and I would ask them if they'd been in the war, and if they did, I would give them a big hug, and that was shut down pretty soon, but I felt their heart probably and their suffering. And so that's another way that my mediumship manifested, that I wouldn't have called it mediumship, but it was like that, is that I'm learning about this, and I like to put language to things. It just helps substantiate it. But, my father was a psychiatrist, and my grandfather was as well. And I know that what kept me safe, I shut things down early. I would have been medicated. I would have been, probably considered multiple personalities, things like that. There just wasn't anyone in my environment to affirm who I was in that way. If you don't know, you don't know. And even though I think people in my family were gifted, as I'm sure you both know, not everybody uses it, so it's sort of latent in a sense. But we would be driving and I would just look out the window like this and I would see the person on the street and I could feel their heart, so I was constantly in a telepathic communication, which I call heart speak or a prayer in a sense, and in the 70s, there weren't really great boundaries. So I used to go with my dad to the psych wards and play with the patients when he would do his rounds. Like he would do them once a month on Saturdays, so people that had schizophrenia and just different soul imbalances. And I could perceive, and I have also, like with nonverbal autistic, with people on the spectrum, and this kind of goes into the starseed things as well. People, what I noticed is that people were here. My arm is way up high. Like here they were, and here was their body, and it was a problem of integration. They weren't able to properly sort of get in their vessel in a way that would help and function. And maybe someone with something like schizophrenia, where they're hearing voices and whatnot, they were in different dimensions and worlds. But then how do you help that? And I've worked with a good amount of special needs populations, and I see the same as well, that they're doing incredible, deep spiritual work, and especially nonverbal, but they're way above their body. And that's the problem, is that they can't integrate. But that may also be their choice to have come into a body for this lifetime that way. And one last thing that I want to say about the starseeds that also really at first, surprised me, because with my integrity, I have to say what I get, in mediumship, you have to say it. You don't know what it means to the other person, and it can just sound completely out there, but that's the evidential part, and you're always out on a limb. It's scary stuff, but
that's when the magic happens. It doesn't need to mean anything to us because we're the conduit, but when we can bring that piece of information through. And it's funny, I'll say that to my clients: if I'm seeing a pink and purple elephant, I'm not interpreting that as a stuffed animal. I'm interpreting that as a pink and purple elephant, and it may not mean anything to me, but may mean everything to you. Yeah, so it's so important. And anyone out there listening that's trying to develop their psychic mediumship, or they're delving farther into this in any way, is realize that can be some of the most crucial information you're bringing through to your sitter. Is it doesn't need to mean anything to you, because us acting as a medium, we're the conduit. We're just bringing the message through, as long as your sitter can take that and they can understand that, because like you said, that could be some of the most crucial evidence that we could ever bring into a session.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's humbling, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's wonderful,
amazing.
though. Yeah. And so I've been working more and more and more with animals, which also wasn't something that I set out to do, but has really, when life keeps bringing you things, there's work to do, and I'm so excited and blessed about it. But I was finding, and I do find, that there's many animals too that actually are incarnated beings from other planets. And try telling that to someone that you just met at a dog show. You don't know anything about their background, and you're just like, oh God, here goes all my credibility. But listen, and when I would ask about it and find out, there would be a certain theme, and this goes to human beings as well, but it would be like I would hear from the animals, or the oversoul, I would imagine, of the animals. They're angels. These are the wonderful beings that I get to interact with. But and again, I would say, just take this as a mythology, take this as a story. I'm going to tell you a tale, but what if this little being that's in a chihuahua's body came from a very advanced race, far out of the cosmos from here, and decided to come down as a little scout? Now, why wouldn't that being want to take on a human form? Well, maybe for that little being, it didn't want to get embedded in the karma that a human being accumulates and the messiness of that, but they still needed a sentient life form where they could have that soul life and have the experiences and have the eyes and the perceptions and the desires and all those grand things, but in that elevated kind of container. And I would see that some of these animals, they were scouts, and it would be like, and I would do this with people too, that and I know that I do this as well, but, and this was an unfolding to come to this, that in my dream life, I know that I do a lot of work. I'm terrible for the most part to remember my dreams, but I know that I go far out. You know, those times when we wake up and you're just exhausted and you need 3 days to wake up to refill yourself from a whole night's sleep. You slept, but you're exhausted, you know, who knows what we were doing, but I would get the image in different ways again and again, that it was as though the human being with their starseed aspect and or the animal, it would be like they would go back to their planet, to their people. And I would almost see those old-fashioned stadiums, the medical stadiums, where you would have the doctor in the lecture hall and you'd have all the people sitting around and they would be doing operations, if you've ever seen that even in movies and stuff. But then they would show like a reel through their eyes, human experiences, so that their people on the other planet could actually experience what it's like in this density, what it's like to be a human being, why we have so much forgetfulness, all of the conditions, because as I understand, they can't directly intercede unless there's very particular circumstances, because we have free will and we're evolving and we have our own journey to make. But that sense that someone that came from another planet, their whole life may be all what's going on in the background in their dream world. And it's simply that they're a kind of a scout or a cultural anthropologist, which is what I felt like most of my life. And just my journey has been so kind of weird, off the charts from the normal. But that sense of gaining myself through touching different land, through integrating all of my past spiritualities, but that it's also serving to help other cultures and other beings grow, explore. As far as I know, they love music, dance, culture, you know, so to learn about the human race, but also to see ways that they can help and have their duties, you know. And I think a lot of people I've met several people that have really felt lost in their life and really felt like they just haven't done it. They're doing such valuable work, but it's just something that we're not aware yet of. Most of us are. And that's the value of having a reading with someone like me or someone like that can get into sort of that soul signature, the heart of what that person is offering to the world, that they may somewhere know about themselves, but to hear it reflected back from the outside with so much respect and grace really is giving someone their true spiritual dignity, their human dignity, that's also the spiritual part. I don't know if that makes sense. Kind of.
Yeah, no, makes absolute sense. Yeah, and I love how you talk about the animals that are among us, you know, and anyone that's lived with a dog, especially, or a cat, I'm sure they can vouch for those experiences and that unconditional love that we get from them. But yeah, I love your perspective on that and the animals. You know, that's very interesting. I could see Mary Amy. I could see the wheels are turning over there. She's got a whole page of notes that she's taking and questions for you. What's going on over there, Mary Amy?
I couldn't help it. Okay, so you immediately when you came on and you started talking, I saw you as Snow White and you were sweeping, and then you were surrounded by nature. For some reason, it was Snow White, and so then I tuned back in because I couldn't help it, and I love to feel and sense your energy. It's spectacular. So this is what I received, and then I have a question for you. So I saw building blocks, and I didn't know what that was. But then I saw this tree. So I saw this tree, and then I saw the ground, and then and foliage. And then it's not about the outside of the tree, it's about the inside of the tree going all the way down below the earth's surface. And it came to me nature fairies. Something you were a nature fairy, or you're connected to nature fairies. And then I got that the building blocks was all really about you building yourself and all the layers and you connecting everything together. And you love to get, this is what I received. You love to gather up everyone for like a big family. And then the more that you build your layers, then the more peace that you have now. And then I got received that you sometimes get scared of stories, and I don't know if this is related to your past or it's now, but you need to listen because you have to be there for their hearts. And you need to do this, even though sometimes you don't want to really necessarily hear it, because it's so important for you to allow them to heal. And there's no other way. And then I saw you picking up a piece of bark and you're talking about it. And you lived in nature. In another lifetime, you lived in nature and you're just talking about this bark. And then it related back, I realized about the tree. And so this is the end of it. I heard that you're just a beautiful piece of glass that the light shines through. Okay, so my question for you is, what are some ideas that you have to help people awaken like you've awakened?
Beautiful question. And what a beautiful reading. Thank you, Mary Amy. That was really lovely. Will you ask the question again?
The question is, what ideas would you have, because you've covered so much already in your own life, all these layers, for those out there who are interested in awakening? Because people hear you and others speak, and then they say, well, how can I be more like that? So how can they awaken? Do you have any ideas?
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh, tons. I mean, I've done so much work on myself. I'm never going to stop doing work on myself. Every time when I do a lot of readings or something like this, I go through a big cleanup process. I get like imposter syndrome. I just go through it. I go through my paces to just keep purifying and cleaning house, But so doing one's inner work, not being afraid of shadow work and integrating things, because I'm also really big. If you see my table, I'm honoring my ancestors, and it's really, really important to me. And it's very deeply felt that anything that we do to heal ourselves works on our generations, those that were and those to come. We know theoretically in this field that time is a construct of the 3D world, so there's simultaneity. And I know that here, but to grasp it once in a while, I get a little sense. I can feel it energetically, but that's how, that's about that, what's to come. So the more we really learn about who we are, and that one, you just start where you are, like for me, the energy stuff is so important. And what you were talking about, good God, I'm terrible with names. Michael, is that right?
It's Michael.
Yes.
I got it. So what you were talking about, like the energy stuff, that's really important to me, but taking people where they are. So, and that tree image is really important. One of the things I'm talking about to people again and again in readings, and what I do every day, and in my meditation, I really ground into the heart of Mother Earth, and I bring my roots down there, and finding a way to make a relationship to the living Gaia, to our mother, because she is alive and she's so worth loving and caring about and thanking, and her kingdoms. And then also grounding into the spiritual world, which is then the branches of the trees. So like the roots, that's that. And I imagine it going in the cosmos, because a true depiction of a human being is that a human being is a being between worlds, the physical sense perceptible world and then the unphysical world. So to make that a reality for people is an incredible way to start. And you can, just the simplest things, we have everything we need, all of us, without a doubt. And you don't have to even pay money for it. Seriously, take off your shoes and step on Mother Earth. Put your hand on a tree. Feel the energy. feel it's so strong to me. I feel like it is very accessible to people. And what I ask people to do, for example, you can do simple things like imagine the energy going from the crown of the tree down into the heart of the earth, knowing that all of the trees communicate to each other throughout the world through their root system, right? And so feeling that energy going into the heart of Mother Earth through the roots and then coming up over the head, in the sky, through the spiritual, and then down the crown. And that's really what a toroidal field is. Are you familiar with that term? It looks like a donut, and this picture back here is that process in meditation. It's the person's already sort of melting into the unknown. Think of like those waterfalls that go up like this and they spray open to the side. And if you could see under the water, the reflection, it would go down below the feet and then up the center line and around. So I feel that it's really crucial. And I don't think it's just me because I have such a relationship to chi or the etheric force, the life force, this Tai Chi realm. I think it's really crucial for all of us to find a way to be in our emotions, energy in motion, so to create those energetic movements around us, because we have so much stagnancy, and that's when we get plugged up and bogged down. And we're also so impinged upon, our electromagnetic fields are being so impinged upon, as well as our animals. And if we can start to really do it for ourselves. So if someone isn't a meditator, then walk, but as you're walking forward, extend your senses behind you simultaneously, so that we start to create these points of infinity in all direction, because that really is sacred geometry. And I believe that's why sacred geometry again is having an awakening now. And that's also frequency and frequency medicine. And these are the things of the future. Learning to just say a prayer into our water. Water is a conductor. We know that we're not getting the minerals in our food. We know all of the areas where we're being attacked. So instead of dwelling on that, and if you're able to spend money on good nutrition and all of that, that's superb. But we do what's available to us. So you take your water and you imagine that it comes from the purest source in the heart of Mother Earth, and you infuse it with the idea of love or whatever word, and that this water is full of pure positive energy, and every cell in my whole body is going to be infected, so to say, with this pure positive energy. And do that to your food, every mineral. Thank you to everybody and everything that went into making this food, and that every mineral, everything, this vessel that carries the body, that carries my soul spiritual being through this short experience in Earth School, Mother Earth. Everything that I need is in that. Those are the things of the future, and that's accessible to everyone. But it really starts with belief. Otherwise, it's going to sound like, like fairyland. So I think it's really remaking a relationship of wonder and awe to the world around us, so that we can vet fear versus love in everything, in our thoughts, our actions, our outlooks, that we can, and that we stop, it causes us to be less fearful then, when we're not afraid to look at the qualities in us that are raw material. And so let's say somebody has anger, and so they're always trying to suppress it, but that anger is raw material, and in the right form, it can be used to really cause change. It can be channeled into creativity. So it's all about welcoming everything that makes us a human being, and not being afraid, inviting what's in our backspace, what we don't maybe want to look at, into the front, and dialoguing with it, and then integrating what needs to, letting go what doesn't. And I do believe between that and YouTube, and there's so many things, someone can really start with what they're drawn to and build on that.
Yeah, I think that's a really important aspect that you bring up, is we can't push away the dark and think that everything is going to be light. It's going to be a journey of light, because when we incorporate dark aspects of ourself, the dark aspects of our being, rather than trying to push that away, it brings us to whole. It brings us to completion, and I think that's a big thing. People think this is all going to be love and light. It's going to be a journey of love and light, when we truly have to go through that. We spoke about earlier, that dark night of the soul, and we have to look at, those other altered aspects of our being, and we have to incorporate them. If we're trying to push them away, then we're never going to truly understand where our true power lies. So I love you talking about that. That's phenomenal. And the other thing too, I want to reiterate, anyone out there listening, what Ellie speaks about is, this is an ongoing journey. We're never gonna master this. We're always going to be the eternal student. We're always going to be learning and growing. We're going to find new modalities, new ways of navigating our own work. So that's the one thing is people out there need to understand is it's never going to all be figured out. It's an ongoing journey, and maybe when we're back in the spiritual realm and we can look back and go, wow, we figured a good portion of it. Maybe we got 95%, but I think the journey is part of the blessing that we can embark on. And it's in that journey and in that study and in that learning and growing is where we truly find ourselves. So that's the one thing people need to understand. It's small steps and it's an ongoing journey, and you're not going to have it figured out in a day, a week, a month, or a year, because, even us that have been doing it for decades don't have it figured out. And we're still learning and growing and expanding our awareness, our consciousness, and the tools that we have in our toolbox, so that's one thing is people need to understand is you don't have to have it figured all out, and just start where you are, start where you're at, and that's the most important thing, I think, is to let go, to believe that it's possible, and to just start doing it.
Yeah. Well spoken, for sure. And to not be afraid. I think that one side that's sort of dangerous of the tendency right now, where there's an intolerance for things, is the danger that one can get very then narrow-minded, and there's a lot of fear behind that. So there's a place down the center that is really where love splits the line, where one can create a vessel that can listen and hold all the dichotomies of a human life, And one thing that has really helped me is when I really have started reframing this world as Earth's school. That we're here to grow our schools. It's not supposed to be, but it's supposed to also be beautiful. If we're robbed of our unhappiness for whatever reason too, that's an injustice. And I feel like we feed the creation beings like the angels and whatnot through our joy and our happiness. So that's something really worth fighting for as well, but it isn't often about the material thing. We can simplify and just say, God, I have a roof over my head today. I had a meal. It wasn't perfect, but I had one. I mean, we are rich in so many ways, and yeah. And
I love how you talk about the tree. It's amazing when we are now starting to find out what ancient mystics knew about the interconnectedness of the tree systems, the root structures, just all of nature and how interconnected it is and how it communicates. And, you'll find now they're doing studies where in certain areas there'll be some type of parasitic infestation into a tree, and it'll send out a signal to all the other trees, and they'll start producing a certain enzyme or certain sap, or there'll be something that'll basically trigger them to create something to repel that parasitic infestation that's occurring. So it's so interconnected, and we're so interconnected to everything. And another thing I want to touch base on is, so your family was involved. They were a psychologist or psychiatrist? What was
psychiatrist?
Psychiatrist.
The big guns.
What's amazing, so you'll find this fascinating, Ellie. So last night I was on a Zoom call with over 40 psychologists and psychiatrists starting to incorporate metaphysical aspects into their practice. So they're starting to learn about energy healing, about psychic abilities, our natural intuitive abilities, mediumship. And it's amazing to see this, these professionals that are now starting to open to this. So it's definitely a new day and age. And, I'm part of I'm a scientific research medium, and it's amazing to see how far that's come. And last night, to just see a group of psychologists, psychiatrists, medical professionals that are now open to this and wanting to explore it so they can incorporate that missing link between they're doing. And, you know, it's just, I think we're, you know, this is a dawn of a new age. I think it's a beautiful age that minds are coming together to truly find the best for humanity. And we're seeing that, you know, that psychics and mediums aren't woo-woo crazies. You know, like you said, as a child, if you had talked about this, you may have been institutionalized. You know, I think many people in days of past had thought that. And I think that's what held it back for so long. But for me, it was almost this major revelation that, you know, here I am on this Zoom call, and they're psychiatrists and psychologists that are looking to learn about this, to incorporate it or understand, you know, like you had talked about, if someone has schizophrenia, well, like in the studies I'm doing at Yale is, you know, what differentiates my mind from the mind of a schizophrenic, and why would someone look at this as mental illness? You know, where are the connections? What's firing in the brain? What's going on with that? And a lot of answers are you know, a lot of answers are coming from this. And I think many people are open and ready to explore it and see how it's all interconnected.
I love that work. That is so exciting to me. You are so lucky. What a lucky duck. That would be wonderful to be a part of that. And it is our time. And gosh, thank God. But
Yeah.
I agree with you. And I agree. There's a lot of work, and I think it'll open soon because the needs are there, and whether people are ready for it or not. And that's what I call that multidimensionality. It is that it's different layers of energy that is just coming on board. And so how do we meet that as a society and meet everybody where they are? That's cool. That would be really fun.
Hey, it's all energy, frequency, and vibration, you know, and if we can learn and study that and how it's interconnected, and you have to think, it's just, you know, unfortunately, in modern times, we've gotten away from what ancient cultures knew and what the ancient mystics knew. And I think it's, you know, it's time that science is starting to catch up to what was known in the past. You know?
Yeah. And that goes into a whole evolution of consciousness. You know, there was more of that union, but there was less of an individuality, and there was more sort of a sleepy consciousness, but there was more of a understanding of these sort of archetypes. And that's where the mythologies came from, as I understand it. And this comes from Rudolf Steiner's, my studies with that in Waldorf Education. But then now we've come about as far down into density, and we have so much individuality that now it's that rising up, then that loosening of that density, and just experiencing ourselves as these physical worlds, so that, and then to bridging the gap through real consciousness back to understanding what the mystics knew, as more of a as more on behalf of the whole rather than as an individual. I didn't quite bring it in, but yeah, that's enough.
It's all coming full circle finally.
Yeah.
Everyone's starting to tap into their consciousness and realize, become more self-realized, and they're looking beyond what's in the physical reality. And when they're tuning inward like we are, and they get more into the meditation, or they're spending, like you said, time in nature and touching a tree or walking barefoot, they can't help but, I guess, activate a part of them that maybe was there when they were little, because they didn't have all these rules and all of this that was denying that. They're going to more of a place of being a child. And there's nothing wrong with that, because when you are around a child, you realize how much of what they're saying is actually all truth. Very few, I work with children, and very few of them are keen on covering things up. They're more or less just tell you how it is. And when we all start coming together and telling each other how it is, then everything's going to open up and be more expansive, across, through nature, through this line of togetherness.
Yeah.
It's a beautiful awakening that's unfolding. That's for sure.
We're all awakening here on Two Psychics. I would have liked to have someone come on and ask for a read, and I had someone earlier, but they left. So I apologize that we don't have anyone for you to read or bring on, but This is how it goes. This is
That's
what's
fine, because Ellie's going to be
right.
back on, and we'll do reads on the next run of Two Psychics podcast.
Yes.
Now, one thing I just want to quickly touch base with is, you speak a lot about the movement and the chi and getting into that zone, the energy flow. Can you speak a little bit about that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, so I grew up dancing. That was my thing, and I'm classically trained. And ballet is the foundation, but then modern jazz, I just did a bit of everything from the time I was really young, and that was really my purest, truest language. So that language of movement was, yeah, that was my entrance and my way of expressing energy, without knowing it. But here's an example. When I was 12 years old, my grandmother passed away, and I begged my parents. I remember just asking them if I could go to my ballet class that day. And they were wise enough to let me do that. Somebody might have thought, oh, what a spoiled brat, or no, you have to be with the family, but they let me. And I just remember doing the bar work. And at the end of a ballet class, they have something called the reverence, right? And we had, maybe they still do, we had a live pianist. So we would bow to the teacher and we would bow to the pianist always at the end. And I remember just praying my grandmother off, like faring her well, fare thee well, while I was doing it. And the movement was just helping me organize my heart and my prayers. And I remember being so grateful that I could do that reverence and have some way, some vessel. I mean, I didn't think about it now, but when I look back on it, it was really that element of having a vessel to channel the love that I felt, and to send her on her way. That was my way of being there for her, and even for my family. So movement has always been an absolute lifesaver. And because I really wasn't very well aligned with the world going on around me, I really just kind of had my own path and my own mind. But when I graduated from high school, 2 days later, I moved to the bigger city, which is Minneapolis, on my way to Broadway. So I thought, because I knew, and some of the visions that the spiritual being showed me when I was very little, they showed me this lemniscape, like the figure 8, but it was like this. And I knew that it had to do with performing. I knew that it had to do with an audience, a live audience. And I knew that it had to do with an energy exchange from my heart to theirs. And so I always thought that I would go, to New York and to Broadway. I would have been chewed up and spit out. I would have gotten under, like it wouldn't have worked for me at that time in my life, and it didn't happen. But shortly after moving to the bigger city, I started taking classes with a local modern dance company, and then I was asked to audition. And so then I was apprenticing in the company, and something happened while rehearsing. There wasn't anything that I was aware of, but all of a sudden I couldn't bend at all. I couldn't bend, and my back was like broken. And there was a dance therapist on their docket. And what I remember being told is that I had a crack on a lower vertebrae of my spine. Well, that was in 1986. 6 months ago, I had a spinal fusion on my L4, L5. And when I told the doctor that, he said, yep, that's what it is. And by this time it was swinging wildly, but it started way back then. And what happened then is I had to completely let go of the dance. I didn't have anything. And it still is a bit bizarre to me, because I don't remember ever talking to my parents about it. I never got an MRI, but on my own. And this is in 86. People weren't doing yoga. Like, it wasn't a thing, at least in Minnesota, maybe in New York. Of course, with special pockets, but I found this guy who's still my yoga teacher, who studied in India in Iyengar yoga, and he really knew anatomy and physiology. And I mean, I didn't have a penny to my name, and he would let me come to free. I remember like bringing him carrot juice and things like that. But he helped me. After 6 months, I could bend again. But then, you guys, what I did, and this has been part of my path as well, and this was something like with my dad, I used to read his medical journals, and I hated like the labeling of that whole, I still like multidimensional labels kind of freak me out a little bit, but I need to get over that. But I knew when I was young that I was going to do psychedelics, and I was never drawn towards other kinds of drugs, but these mind-opening ones. And I used to talk to my dad about it when I was 18 or so. We couldn't find that kind of stuff in Duluth. At least I didn't have access to it. But what happened is when I was 10 years old, it's going to come around. I found on the college radio station, they had the Grateful Dead playing. They had like a night show on Saturday night, and I always loved long hair, and I don't know, I had something about the generation 1.5 before me. But so what happened is, after working with this man and doing yoga daily, and I was able to bend, I moved to San Francisco. I lived in the Haight-Ashbury. I thought I would know everybody, would be neighbors. I thought it would be what my little mind, contorted into like this big family. But I started going to shows, and I traveled around for a couple of years. I went to India and Nepal with a group of hippies that we were traveling together. They were from the East Coast, and they actually had been busted selling pot. And so what their mandate was is that they had to have a stable sort of business for a year, and they didn't suffer consequences. That was before I met them, but they would import sweaters, and like at that time it was those pillowcases with little shiny mirrors on it. If you guys remember the 80s, you probably don't, you might be too young, but so we would sell those at the shows.
I remember the 80s well. The 80s were an integral part, I think, of my life.
And I knew that I was going to have a point in my life where I was going to do psychedelics really intensely, and then that one day I would leave it. And it was exactly like that. And thank God, I think my angels were holding me, and they were just like, okay, Ellie, if you have to do that, you can. I was always safe. No harm came to me. I'm so grateful. But for those 2 years, we camped outside. It was that lifestyle. But what I look back and see is I never could dance to other music, but with the Grateful Dead, they were really channeling energy. And so the kind of dancing I did is that weird kind of dancing that you see. But I know now that I was really in my way, in a sense, going back to perhaps, other lifetimes or other ways of expressing spirituality and expressing nature and moving energy. So that was a thread that kept moving through my life. So I had to let go of the dance, but I always had this idea, you let something go, and if it's yours, it'll come back. There's that poem, but it felt true to me. So I never really mourned it. I just kept going, and you're young, and I was out for adventures. And then I had many years of adventures. And then it circled back to the 4-year training in Eurythmy that I did in Mount Shasta. So I did 2 years first in early childhood education. And then I went up there, and we lived off grid. We farmed with horses. They don't advertise. It was a very unique thing. And it was a very deep spiritual study. And it was a movement art that was based in the etheric and the life force. And they actually teach this in this Waldorf school system. But what they would say, it was like making sound visible. So like every sound, like the vowels are like the soul, the ah, the oh, they move out from the body. The consonants are like the substantive part, the ta, pa, ka. And if you even look at children, there's a certain point of time where they're really working on their body structure, actually, and they're doing a lot of consonant kinds of sounds. So when I taught, like for the kindergarten curriculum, I would memorize fairy tales in rhyme and poetry, and I had a pianist, and so I would tell the stories with the children, and I would be doing movement, like this is the sign for ba, so the big bear. The children would watch, and they would do the gestures with me. That again was the etheric world, the energy world. And I would, every time we would open, we would stand in a circle, and we would do a certain movements to begin our training and our work, or before performances. I would always feel the room populating with just I don't know, thousands and thousands of souls that were interested, because of course a lot of people across the threshold, they love music, and that's a very beautiful way to connect to people from the other side. But my mediumship and all of these things were running on the background. I was also starting to have ET experiences that I never mention to anyone. And I had so many experiences that I couldn't connect the dots until my mid-50s. And I'm really glad as a child I didn't know it would take me so long to get to do my work. I don't think I would have been able to hang out for it. It would have been just too hard. Just like, I don't blend. I feel that way anyway. But so with the energy movement, it's just become more and more important to me. And then with my back issues, I started doing just a little bit of soft qigong, and it was just that without studying it, it was so deeply accessible to me, like that realm of qi. And I often would feel like sort of transposing upon myself this young sort of Asian man in this body that was a young monk that was a master of that. And I just have a relationship to that realm. And I know I have different guides and helpers for my mediumship than I do for the animal work. And the animal work ones, because I do energy work with the animals and I wasn't trained, it's my own that pours through me. There's a lot of chi masters. So, and then just working in meditation, that realm is so alive and important and exciting to me. That's how I do it.
It's interesting. It's almost like our soul takes us on this journey, because for you, the experience of that movement, I experienced a lot of that and kind of that spiritual essence of movement in martial arts. As a child, I was in martial arts for a long period of time, and I felt that same connection, what you speak about. And it's interesting. And I think that's one thing anybody out there should understand is, it's going to be hard to go sit in the forest on a rock like a Buddhist monk for 7 hours and get into the zone. But sometimes in yoga, in Tai Chi, in Qui-Gon, in martial arts, in dance and movement, we can find and speak to our soul. We can connect to our soul's essence. And I think that's one thing. If someone's having a hard time meditating or quieting down their mind, it might be in those moments of some type of body movement, some type of motion that they can connect to their soul. So now,
and that goes back to Mary Amy's really important point. Like, to people, what would you say? What can help you? It's that emotion, energy, and motion to find any kind of resource. That's at least what I feel is Alpha and Omega right now. Yeah.
So now, Ellie, this has been a fantastic talk. I feel like we could keep going for a couple more hours on this stuff. It's just like, this is some really, really good stuff. But can you share with our listeners out there, if they want to get in touch with you, find out a little bit more about you, get a private reading or anything that you're embarking on, what's going to be the best way for our listeners to find you? Yeah,
so I would have a look. My website is super wordy. I am so untechy. Mary Amy
It's beautiful. That's not true. I looked at it and I love it. And it showed, you know what? There's something for everyone there.
Yeah, and I approach it as an artist, but it's very wordy in any case. And I have so many different boxes that you can look at. But I would say have a read, see what draws you in, and then I do loads of reading. I go to a lot of holistic fairs and whatnot. I absolutely love giving readings. I channel through my cards, and I was hoping there'd be some readers that we could do that, but that's okay for another day. And to have a look. And I'm always open, because there's so many different ways that I can work with somebody depending on what they need. Some people, a lot of people don't know, or they just want a reading, but there's a lot I can do in the energy field, helping people see around them, working on things that are blocked and those kinds of things. I welcome like a 10-15 minute conversation where they can ask questions and I can direct something. And especially with the animal communication as well, because a lot of people are, or at least to the people that are new to it, it's really good to have a short conversation so that I can get a sense. And all of that stuff, because it's energy, it translates across the globe. And I do work with people all over the world. So yeah, have a look at my website, www.loveyourpath.net.
Got that right across the screen.
And I do want to hear, because we didn't have a chance, and so maybe we'll have another opportunity to speak to you about the connection to the extraterrestrials, because I do believe that's coming forward with this 3-eye atlas. And what is that? And
Yeah.
I don't know, we'll see. People are willing to talk about it more now.
Yeah, exactly. It's time. And that was a big darn deal for me to out that, you know, and that's in fact how Dana and I met. We met at a holistic fair, and she was promoting her book, and I had something on my table about I am an experiencer of the extraterrestrial phenomena, something for people to read if they were interested. And that was a big threshold for me, but now it is becoming, it's just time for those conversations. And I've digested enough that I actually have a bit of something to say, because it was very frightening for me. It wasn't, some people are much more open-minded and welcoming perhaps, but it's been a bit of a road. It's been very interesting, that whole subject.
Well, when we do some of our live events and we have our Two Psychics extravaganza here, you know, in New York or New Jersey, we're gonna have you travel down here to the East Coast shore.
Yeah, I would love it. I would absolutely love it. Yeah, that would be great. You guys, thank you so much. It was very wonderful to meet both of you, and that you invited me on. And thank you.
Anyone
Dana.
out there that wants to deep dive a little more with Ellie, loveyourpath.net. You can absolutely check her out, what she's doing, and maybe get a private reading, or make sure you tune in when we have Ellie back on Two Psychics podcast some point in the future, and hopefully we get to do some live readings. But it's been a fascinating conversation. I love your perspective. I love you being open and insightful for us and with all our listeners. This has been a great conversation. Like I said, I think we could go a couple more hours, but we'll save that for part 2.
Okay, so everyone out there, this broadcast, you can catch us. It's going to be scrolling on Facebook, but it will be on YouTube, Rumble, and then the audio will be on Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, Apple, Amazon. So you can re-listen to it, and there's a lot here because she's a pro, she's an expert. There's a lot here. So I hope you listen to a recast of this, and like Ellie said, you can catch her on loveyourpath.net. She is an animal communicator, nature communicator, ET experiencer. She knows about starseeds. She's a medium. She's a channel, and she has an open heart. So get an intuitive reading.
Thank you so much, Ellie. We really appreciate you being here with Two Psychics.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us.
We'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.
I don't know how to get out. You're going to have to kick me off.
Okay. If I remove you, I don't know if I want to remove you, because then it says, did she join you? Okay.
Nope, there we go.
Okay. All right, everyone. So, Michael, that was wonderful, wasn't it, to have Ellie?
Yeah.
And I learned.
So I said we're definitely going to be doing a part 2, because there's so much more we could get into.
Definitely. If anyone wants to join us next week, we'll be back on for episode 66, and we're going to do meditation, and we're going to do a visualization, and we're going to talk about what's going on. Michael's going to talk about his mediumship. I'm going to talk about my intuitive work, and we're going to share with everyone our upcoming, what we're going to be doing together, our live events starting in October. And I wanted to also, I never pitch my stuff, but this is my children's book, Earthly and the Gemstones. And I always have so many gemstones, and they will, if you buy some tumbled stones or raw gemstones, you can get this on Amazon, by the way, because the holidays are coming.
It's a fantastic book with fantastic artwork in there, pictures. I have a copy.
Thank you for saying that.
And then I'll shamelessly promote my meditation album, streaming on any platform that you are listening to music. Divine Journey of a Mystic Soul by Michael Edley. Check it out. Binaural beats, hemi-sync, get you into the zone. Divine Journey of a Mystic Soul. Anyone out there, if you want to find us on social media. Two Psychics Podcast on Facebook. We will be streaming all these episodes. So if you missed it live and you're looking for a certain episode, it'll be on Two Psychics Podcast on Facebook. Like and follow that. We'd love to have you check that page out and get us some more likes and follows. Eye of the Spirits with Michael Edley. It's my Facebook page if you want to check out anything I'm doing as far as mediumship goes or anything we're doing as Two Psychics. Mary Amy Official is your website. eyeofthespirits.com is mine. And Mary Amy, give us a rundown. What do you have on Amazon right now? You got your dream journal.
I have my dream journal, a personal diary of messages, signs, and symbols, and you can put in 100 entries. I have Earthly and the Gemstones, and it's a beautiful book. And you can see like Earthly's journey where he catches all the gemstones on his, there's his map. There's the map. Wait, there's the map. And there's the gemstones. But you can get also the White Light Prophecies, and it's under Blue Butterfly. I also have an Etsy page now, Mary Amy Official. And I just want to say to everyone, sometimes we feel like, oh my gosh, I'm overwhelmed and everything's chaotic. But my suggestion would be is to turn off your technology, unless, of course, you're listening to a guided meditation. And maybe just put all your weight in your bottom, focus on, like Ellie was saying, your feet into the earth, like the roots of a tree, and just focus on your breathing. You're inhaling and you're exhaling, and just try to quiet your mind, because you're in there somewhere. Your inner spirit wants to break free.
And you can vouch 5 days without a phone, your own personal experience, right? Disconnect.
It was like a total detox. And you know what? Like, I loved it. And when I got my phone fixed, I was like, now I have no excuse. But I'm not using it as much. And I'm definitely not using it as much.
Be more mindful. Be mindful of how much you're scrolling. And if you're doom scrolling endlessly, just be mindful of it. I think we can all benefit from those words of wisdom.
If you want a psychic reading or a mediumship reading, you can contact Michael. We do have products on Spreadshop. Okay, everyone. Well, I hope you like Two Psychics Podcast on our Facebook page, and everyone be well. And thank you for supporting us.
See you next time.
Bye.
Welcome to Two Psychics. This is Michael Edley, evidential medium and mystic, discussing all things spiritual.
Hello, I'm Mary Amy of Two Psychics, an intuitive wisdom coach, tapping into your mystical life and sharing messages I receive about you.